Since UConn's season ended, one win shy of a trip to the Final Four. Think these fans are fired up to get going again? Opening night is next. It's been 24 years since UConn lost its first home game of the season. Tonight, the Huskies try to extend that streak. We are at Gamble Pavilion in Storrs, Connecticut, where the Quinnipiac Bobcats meet 18th-ranked UConn to open up the season. And a very pleasant good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Picozzi along with Doug Gottlieb. Welcome to another season of Big East basketball. In his 34-year Hall of Fame career, Jim Calhoun has never seen anything like it. Doug, he has 9 first-year players, but for a very good reason.
Yeah, I mean, how often do we see 5 players from one team selected in the NBA draft, 4 selected in the first round of the NBA draft? Wow, Rudy Gay, what a career that he had. Josh Boone, the ability to block shots, and Hilton Armstrong, maybe the most improved player in the country last year, definitely in the Big East. What'd they lose? 71 points of offense in transition in the half court. This team was dynamic. They rebounded the basketball with Boone, with Hilton Armstrong. They dominated the glass. They also created for one another. A guy like Marcus Williams, we don't see that type of talent creating for others every day in the college level. And then 8 blocks a game. This team created points in so many different ways. There's some big shoes to fill. Those are some talented players that are gone from UConn.
But the cupboard is hardly bare. This UConn team is talented, deep, and very athletic.
Yeah, and maybe last year's UConn team wins the national title if they have A.J. Price healthy, A.J. Price not suspended. Of course, we all remember the brain hemorrhage. We know about the suspension from last season. This is a talented basketball player who now has a 7'3" freshman who Jim Calhoun says improves in leaps and bounds every practice. The ability to block shots, create transition, and essentially wall off the inside for the other team's offense is an incredible threat to have. And if he improves to the level they think he can, this team has a chance to be very special at the end of the year.
Now tonight's foe is Quinnipiac, and all Carl Anderson did in 2 exhibition games was score 41 points. The opening tip is next. Funds, the right way to invest. Bob Picozzi and Doug Gottlieb back at Gamble Pavilion, ready for the opener, the 8th ever meeting between Quinnipiac and UConn. Let's check out the starting lineup. First for the visiting Bobcats. Last year against UConn, Chris Way had 16 points and a career-high 16 rebounds. He's up front with Anderson. 3-man backcourt, Cosgrove, Crofton, and Mindbreast. For UConn, we told you about Price and Fabit. Freshman Jerome Dyson starts at guard, and Jeff Adrian, preseason All-Big East, one of the forwards along with Marcus Johnson. There will be Fabit jumping center with Anderson. Mike Kitts will toss the ball between them. He's working tonight with Wally Ruchecki and Brian O'Connell, and we're underway. Price left side, Marcus Johnson with the first shot of the season. Rebound is pulled down by Way.
And the one thing Johnson's done better than expected in the preseason, at least in practice, is shoot the basketball. If he wants more minutes, he needs to knock down that 18-footer.
Cosgrove is the freshman point guard. His dad, James, is the men's coach at Adelphi. Baseline by Carl Anderson. Rebound pulled down by Johnson. Gives to Dyson left side to Price. He's really a combination guard, Doug, but he'll begin the season with the point.
Yeah, he's a combination guard, and they hope the combination is that of scoring and more scoring.
Misses his first shot. Rebound pulled down by Way. Again, Price nearly got the steal. Instead, Cosgrove to Way, who lays it in. Way had the big game against UConn last year. Quinnipiac played UConn very, very tough for almost the entire first half in Hartford a year ago. It was tied with 5 minutes to go in the half. Then UConn proceeded to blow the drawers off the Bobcats. Price created the contact and got the basket.
Now you see Price, he is offensive-minded to start this game. Really struggled in the Huskies' second preseason game. He combined with Doug Wiggins for 9 turnovers in the first half. Jim Calhoun was disgusted at that performance.
Scored just 4 points, took only 5 shots, and here's the first turnover of the night on Quinnipiac, setting the screen. The foul will be called on the Bobcats. There's Jim Calhoun. In his first 20 years at UConn, has won 6 Big East titles and 2 national championships.
He really likes his team, and the key word the coaching staff is trying to preach to the Hall of Famer is patience. And when you have this many youngsters, it is difficult to be patient. He's been really patient with them in practice. In the games, it's the old coach. Getting on him, getting that hook out.
Easier said than done. He said he's going to be a real new experience from this year. Jeff Adrian hitting the jumper from the foul line.
Now, if he hits that, boy, good luck guarding him because he's such a dynamic threat in that low post.
Adrian, one of 11 players selected to the preseason All-Big East team. Crafton, he's a three-point specialist, had 7 of them in the second exhibition game. Here's Price with the steal. And Cosgrove fouled her. That could be an intention, but instead it will not be. First on Cosgrove and 2 on the team.
Now, A.J. Price, remember, is shaking off 2 years of rust. Had the suspension last year, but before that, had the brain hemorrhage. He nearly died from a brain hemorrhage. And look, you play basketball your entire life. I don't care how much you do in preseason practice, how much you do in the summer. You haven't played in game competition. It is very different, very foreign to you.
Yeah, and he's the first to admit that he does not believe he is in yet 100% game condition. We get a foul on the inbound pass on the Bobcats. This one will be called on Crafton, his first, already 3 on Quinnipiac. Or no, make that mind rest against it. Joe DeSantis in his 11th year at Quinnipiac, second leading scorer in Fairfield history. Fabit's first shot was one he'd rather relive. Fabit from Tanzania, last year attended the Cypress Christian School in Houston. Did not receive NCAA clearinghouse approval for his eligibility until about 2 weeks ago. Pass inside, in and out of the hands of Way.
Hey, you discussed A.J. Price being the first one to admit that he is not yet in game condition. The coaching staff told me when I came to practice about a week and a half ago that he struggles to get through a 3-hour practice. Now, it is a 3-hour Jim Calhoun practice, which is not a normal 3-hour practice. But until he gets in that game condition, you won't see the real A.J. Price.
Ball knocked out of bounds. Last touch by the Bobcats. 21 seconds left on the shot clock. Price, his dad, Tony, was the starting guard on a Penn team that played in the Final Four in 1979. This is Dyson, lightning quick. Down low, sweet position inside for Thabit. Counted in the foul. And that's already 2 on Anderson.
When you watch Hasheem Thabit, you have to understand that for a guy his size, at his development spot, he does a great job of getting position. Now, he can't allow himself to be driven out of the post by Anderson, and frankly, he's too nice a kid. He has to learn that just because everybody else is at elbow level is not his fault. And occasionally he turns, somebody's going to get an elbow, and they want him to continue to concentrate on going up strong and dunking the basketball. He
has really struggled from the foul line in the preseason. 7 for 14 against Bryant, 3 for 8 against AIC, and he misses his first one tonight. Right side 3 for Dyson. And UConn with the quick 9-2 lead. Price nearly with the steal, but couldn't prevent it from going over the sideline. Full court pressure employed by the Huskies. This is a team, Doug, that is more built for full court man-to-man pressure than last year's team, which went to the Final 8.
Oh, no question about it. Last year's team, a lot of people said that team underachieved, but the problem with last year's team is, you know, it really wasn't properly built. You have one true guard, one true Big East caliber guard on that entire team. Now you have 3, 4, 5 guards on this team that can play.
Cosgrove misses the 3. Thabit goes up and gets the rebound. Johnson quickly, Dyson takes it right in the lane. And a blocking foul will be called on Crafton. This is his first, and that's already 5 on the Bobcats.
Jerome Dyson, Gary Williams got an extension at Maryland, but there's a lot of Maryland fans that cannot believe they went in and got another one. UConn went in and got another Maryland product. This kid can absolutely play, has a little bit of Ben Gordon in his game, heck, a little bit of Ray Allen in his game.
Dyson misses the first free throw. He's out of Churchill High School, also played at Proctor Academy in New Hampshire, makes his home in Rockville, Maryland. And Price will get a rest. Jim Calhoun will run people in and out. Craig Austry, who started 24 games last year in the lineup replacing Price. Way rebounds the missed free throw, so the Huskies have already struggled from the line, missing their last 3. Cosgrove to Way, being guarded by Adrian. Up top, Mindbreast, defended by Johnson. Crafton throws up the 3 with Dyson's hand in his face. Rebound off the Beats' hands. And a fresh 35 on the shot clock. Right side 2 for Mindbreast. Foot was on the line. Mindbreast shot 55% from three-point range last year.
Well, the beauty in playing for Joe DeSantis is he lets his guys play. He knows that UConn plays better when you play up-tempo, but that's how he's going to play in the NEC, and that's how he's going to play in Gambit.
Yeah, he was telling us before the game that very point. He says, I know we shouldn't try to run against these guys, but that's all I know. Adrian double team, passes out of the double to Austry. Penetrates, kick out, Dyson, another 3. Rebound inside Johnson, but he'll be called for the foul on the rebound. That's the first on UConn.
He talked about Joe DeSantis, and and that he keeps coming in here, keeps running, pushing the basketball. Maybe that's why they keep inviting him back.
Joe is telling us when we get everyone back, we'll have a nice mixture of athletes and what he calls system players, a legitimate 10-man rotation, but they're shorthanded. Job Casimir academically ineligible for the remainder of the fall semester. Freshman Etienne Lebrec out with a hairline fracture of the ankle. A couple of other players missed some playing time in the preseason as well. Down low. This is Akinyanju who's in the game, and there's the block shot combination to beat, and freshman Stanley Robinson got it. Austri lobs down to Adrian, knocked out of bounds, last touch by Adrian. Akinyanju did a nice job of fronting him. So UConn jumped out to a 9-2 lead. It's now 9-4. The Huskies are 20-0 in their home openers under their Hall of Fame coach, Jim Calhoun. UConn by 5. UConn has a lot of answers, lots of choices, and if you don't play defense, you'll find a seat on the bench.
Well, that's a Cardinals thing. You see A.J. Price going for the steal, leaving the back end open. Now, against Quinnipiac, sometimes you can recover, but you get against Georgetown, you get against Pitt, you cannot leave the back end open. This is different than high school basketball. You go for a steal in the backcourt, you darn well better get it.
UConn has lots of depth in the backcourt with 2 of those 9 first-year players starting tonight, Price and Dyson. Craig Austri, who played so much last year as a freshman, and in the game right now, Doug Wiggins, a freshman from East Hartford, Connecticut. It'll basically be a 4-man rotation in that backcourt. Here's Mindress. Inside, Robinson went for the block shot, didn't get it, but will be called for the foul, sending Way to the line.
Well, Mindress does a nice job of dribble penetration, bringing the help to him and dishing off just in time. Obviously, Quinnipiac is undersized. That doesn't mean they're underskilled, and they're spreading UConn out, making them play man-to-man defense, a lot like shell defense. We go 4-on-4-on-4 every day in practice. This is putting practice into effect in the game situation.
So at the free throw line will go Way. He was a 71% shooter there a year ago. Way is a transfer from Cecil Community College. We mentioned Doug Wiggins, number 3 in the white for UConn, a prolific scorer out of East Hartford High School in Connecticut. In fact, he led the state of Connecticut in scoring in his junior and senior year.
Well, he's a guy that is going to be a 4-year player here at UConn. And with message boards and with recruiting services saying you got to recruit all Americans. The problem with all Americans is sometimes they leave early. You need guys that stay around, that are Talik Browns, that produce for your program for 4 years. Jeffrey Adrian's that type of guy, and I think Doug Wiggins would be that kind of guy as well.
As we mentioned at the very beginning of the broadcast, UConn had 5 players picked among the first 40 selections in the NBA draft. Only one of those was a senior, and that was Denham Brown. Well, actually, 2 of them were Hilton Armstrong. Price up top, being defended by Adam Gonzalez, who's in the lineup for Quinnipiac. Shot clock down to 5. Wiggins right side jumper. Rebound way up in the air, and picking up the loose junk is Robinson, but he couldn't finish. Adrian with the save, and UConn will get the reset. Price back in at the point. Looking down low for Adrian. Has the sweet position on Way. Missed the jump hook. Robinson couldn't quite finish, but he's been very active off the boards, though.
Well, that's what Robinson does. You know, a lot of teams in the SEC, Big 12 have said, boy, we sure would have loved to have him. And the question is, can he play the 3 position, or is he a 4? He wants to be a 3. At some point in his career, he'll be a 3, especially when he plays in the NBA. But right now, he's somewhere in between.
SEC country from Birmingham, Alabama. Curtis Kelly lost his footing and the ball. Gonzalez at the other end misses the shot, tipped up once, and then coming down with the rebound was Robinson again. Here's Price, quickly penetrate, kick out Wiggins, returns to Price. Ball fake gets him around Gonzalez, who's called for the bump. Number 1 on Gonzalez and 6 on the Bobcats.
That was set up by the by-player Doug Wiggins, and that's a relocation drill, just perfectly duplicated from the practice. You know, when you work on jump shots in practice, it's no longer you have a coach, you have a manager feeding you, throwing the basketball. Instead, it's a teammate dribbling, you relocate, you penetrate and kick. That's what happens when Wiggins set up Price.
So Price will go to the line to shoot a couple. With 9 new players, what are Jim Calhoun's expectations? Well, he told me the same as always, to be as good as any team in the Big East, but the rate at which we get there might be different than it's been in the past.
Well, you remember North Carolina last year and Kansas last year. Two teams that came on late. They both had a bevy of young players. But he thinks the key to this team is none other than number 12, A.J. Price. They need him to be a star. They need 3 top 15 players in the Big East. That's what they believe. 3 top 15 players in the Big East in order to be a Final 8, Final 4 type team.
Number 0, Demario Anderson, a transfer from Central Connecticut, in the lineup for the first time for Quinnipiac. He's defended by Robinson. Robinson 7 inches taller than Anderson. Right side Cosgrove, guarded by Price. Throwing up the 3 is way. Boy, that's not his game from out there.
I noticed you didn't do the comparison in size between Hashim Thabit and whoever he's guarding.
Well, that'd be a
Once you get past 10, you just stop counting?
Hashim Thabit goes 7'3". And you were remarking, it looks like his warm-up top didn't fit him. Went down to about his navel instead of down to the hips.
I'm wondering what the jacket size is. If he gets a suit coat?
Well, you won't be able to borrow it, that's for sure.
No.
Wiggins called for the palming. Now, at UConn's first exhibition game, we saw a lot of those palming calls, much more so than normal.
Well, point of emphasis, of course, once again, and officials, hey, remember last year in the NCAA tournament, the disputed palming call on Marcus Williams in the last minute of a Sweet 16 game.
Against Washington. Laying it up and in, putting it on the floor, and doing a nice job was Way. Quickly the other way, it's Wiggins. Way already has 6. Robinson down low to Gavin Edwards, but Way got a hand in there to knock it away.
Well, Edwards he has to hold position. He wants to play. He's a little bit slight of build. Been a nice surprise so far in the preseason. But you have somebody on your back, you have to hold position inside.
The travel on Way, 4th turnover on Quinnipiac, so Edwards will get a seat. Edwards is one of the 8 freshmen, one of the 9 first-year players, including Price, who's a sophomore on the UConn team. And it is a very spirited battle, Doug, for the backup spot behind Thabit in the middle between Edwards and Jonathan Mantle. Shot by Price, no good. Dyson tried to save, couldn't. So UConn jumped out to a 9-2 lead, but that lead is down to 2, and the Huskies have hit a cold spell. They have out-rebounded Quinnipiac offensively 7-1.
And that's based upon how hard they're playing, but also the size differential. They're playing plenty hard enough. They have to continue to learn to play smarter. And that's the difference in youth. You have some guys with high basketball IQs, but you have to translate what you've learned in practice and not think too much in the games.
Gonzalez starts to go, and the bumping foul will be called on UConn.
Gonzalez, former junior college player of the year, guy who's 23 years old, and you look at some of these Quinnipiac players, you say, well, you know, how do some of these mid-majors and low majors compete with the high majors when you get to the NCAA tournament? Frankly, a lot of these teams have 23, 24, 25-year-old players playing against 18-year-old freshmen and men against boys, and sometimes the men actually still can take the boys even if they're not as talented as the boys.
Way throws it up from there again. This one didn't get anywhere near the rim. Adrian got a piece. Shot clock didn't recycle, but still plenty of time left at 20. Cosgrove around the Way screen. Gets a step on Price. Feeds down low to Akinyanju, and that was partially blocked by Thabit. Price, shake and bake move. Johnson returns it to Price.
And that's Johnson not having confidence in his jump shot. He was wide open.
Turnover number 4 for UConn, and Quinnipiac with its 5th turnover. Play very ragged. Looks like sort of a typical open night. Look at that move by Dyson.
Well, that's where Dyson's special. A lot of guys can catch and shoot, but very few can catch and shoot and put the ball on the deck and create off the dribble. He can do both.
Dyson with 5, averaged 26 a game last year at Proctor Academy in New Hampshire. Down low, Akinyanju. Kick out to Mario Anderson. Buries the 3. He shot 43% from three-point range 2 years ago as a sophomore at Central Connecticut.
Of course, didn't play 2 exhibition games. His mother passed away of a long illness.
Yeah, she passed away on Halloween, Lisa Duncan. And the funeral wasn't until this past Tuesday, so he didn't rejoin the team until practice on Wednesday night, so he's a bit behind. Right side 3, Dyson. So Dyson's knocked down a couple of threes, and he's got 8 points in the first 9 minutes of his career.
I just love his balance. He just gets his both feet under him, great balance. And when you can shoot and have the type of release that Jerome Dyson has, well, that is a deadly combination.
Johnson with the steal, and then the quick reach-in foul on Demario Anderson. That's 1 on him and 7 on the team. It's UConn by 4. It's a 4-point UConn lead. Doug, there are 8 freshmen so far. The best one in the early going has been Jerome Dyson.
Yeah, the coaching staff raves about his ability to shoot the basket and also put the ball on the deck and score and get in there and get to the free throw line. But when he hits his balance, and he has like a beautiful release, great backspin on the jump shot. Jerome Dyson's a guy who's going to score a lot of points in the Big East as long as he's in the Big East. Doesn't have quite the burst, the first step of a Ben Gordon. Maybe not quite the release or the vertical ability of a Ray Allen, but Jerome Dyson has a little bit of both of those guards, those former UConn stars, in his game.
Marcus Johnson started 5 games as a freshman a year ago, hitting the front end of the 1-on-1. Quinnipiac is over the limit, so UConn will have many free throw opportunities the rest of the half. UConn was not a good free throw shooting team a year ago, only 70.6%, and that was only 10th best in the 16-team Big East.
We want to talk about a great high school program. Marcus came out of Westchester High School, had 11 players from Westchester in Division I basketball. Last year, Brandon Heath, Mountain West Player of the Year. Bobby Brown at Cal State Fulton, best player in the Big West.
And Johnson got a piece of that shot from behind, and here comes UConn. Wiggins to Johnson. Kick out Dyson. He already has 2 threes. This one's a little bit deeper. Rebound inside Adrian. And the foul. Jeff Adrian with a chance for a 3-point play.
Now Dyson gets great balance, already has 2 threes, but watch Jeff Adrian. He just gets lower and roots out the defender and has a little bit of Craig Smith, a little bit of the Cookie Monster in his game. You know, only about 6'6", listed at 6'7", but hey, he may be undersized, not underskilled, not under strength.
Adrian had perhaps his best game as a freshman a year ago in the final game of the year against George Mason, the season-ending loss. Career high 17 points, 7 rebounds, 7 of 8 from the floor. UConn would not have been in that and in the overtime game were it not for Adrian.
Well, Adrian, you know, with his size, he will be even more valuable at this level against mid-major teams because, frankly, they have big guys that can't just play behind him and root him out. But when he gets against the Roy Hibberts, that's where he struggles. Now, but you have Hashim Thabit to play against the bigger players. Now he's playing a power forward spot. He'll still be able to play for a long time at the college position of his choice.
Thabit picked up that foul at the other end, his first. Shot clock down to 10. DeMario Anderson to Gonzalez with Adrian's hand in his face, and it got nowhere near the rim as a result. Right side Wiggins. Wiggins is lightning quick. Averaged 32 points a game as a high school senior. Adrian low block. Takes it right to the hole. Missed the shot. Rebound Gonzalez. This is Cosgrove. We're past the midway point of the first half on opening night. UConn and Quinnipiac. The Huskies have won all 7 games in this one-sided series, including a 111-75 victory in Hartford last December 30th. Cosgrove to Gonzalez. Mindrest with the drive. No good. Tipped by Akinyanju, but winds up in Johnson's lap.
And that wasn't a block shot, but you might as well credit that one to Hashim Thabit. Changed the shot.
6 turnover for UConn. Quickly the other way, DeMario Anderson. And Jim Calhoun does not like what he sees there. And he'll call a timeout and have some pearls of wisdom for Marcus Johnson.
That's what's commonly known in college basketball as the hook. And the older coaches, the old school coaches, especially ones that have a banner up in their own arena that says Hall of Fame,
right,
they hook at a much quicker rate. I played for a coach that should have his name in the Hall of Fame, and Eddie Sutton. Let me tell you, preseason games, it was worse to play a team like this than it would be play a ranked team because you could hook guys. You could use the game as essentially a class. This is what we're going to do in game situations. If you don't like it, I got a guy on the bench who can get it done.
We are at Gamble Pavilion on the campus of the University of Connecticut. Opening night 2006-2007. I'm Bob Picozzi along with Doug Gottlieb. Glad that you've joined us. I don't think Gary Miller's here. We wish he was. Always
He's
like
out in
to see
center
Gary
field,
in the
actually.
house. But the UConn Huskies have a 6-point lead. You know, talk about the quick hook. Of course, last year, Marcus Williams was suspended for the beginning of the season, so Craig Austrie got the start at point guard on opening night against Pepperdine, and lasted about 30 seconds on the floor before he got the hook.
I think I've never not made it to the first TV timeout, but I know what the hook feels like.
You also never played for Jim Calhoun.
Well, yeah, trust me, Eddie Sutton's hook is every bit as quick.
Robinson with the left side jumper. Foot was on the line. It's a 2, and the Huskies have opened up an 8-point lead. First 2 points for Robinson, who scored 2,094 of them in his high school career. Blocking foul on Wiggins, his first, and number 5 on UConn.
You know, just like Marcus Johnson got an earful, now all of a sudden the officials get an earful from Jim Calhoun, asking to reward his players for their effort. And that's the one thing he said about this team in practice. He cannot fault their effort. They give it to him every day in practice. But they're young, they're freshmen. He doesn't know whether to make them run lines or put them in timeout.
So far, they are much more proficient in practice at the defensive end before. Deep three to Mario Anderson. Rebound batted around.
You don't want to go up there.
Away. Pass went through DeMario Anderson's hands. Quinnipiac tried to save, and George Blaney nearly took a charge there on the UConn bench.
Sheem Thabit's so big that when Way got the rebound, he looked up. He couldn't even see the TV lights. And that's just dribble that basketball out and reset your offense.
So Quinnipiac has 5 field goals and 7 turnovers in the first 12 minutes.
You're seeing Quinnipiac in a 1-3-1 or a 1-2-1-1.
Wiggins with a nice rebound. Robinson. The AIC 1-3-1 zone gave UConn fits in its first exhibition game. Dyson with his 3rd three of the first half.
And I got a chance to catch up with Tom Moore before the game. He said, you know what, honestly, that was the coaching staff's fault. They have so much stuff to put in that they just hadn't put in the 3 things they run against a 1-3-1 zone trap.
Dyson creates the turnover. He deflected it, but it was last touched by Gonzalez. Dyson's got 11 points in the first 12 minutes of his career, and Joe DeSantis' club trails by 11. UConn enjoying its biggest lead of the night at 11. Let's take a look at our Big East leaders, brought to you by Hyundai, looking at the team scoring leaders from last season in the Big East.
Well, this is how much the Big East has changed. You know, West Virginia loses their top 4 scorers. Notre Dame loses Chris Quinn. Syracuse loses G-Mac. Rutgers loses Quincy Doobie. Pitt loses Carl Krauser. Louisville, Taekwon Dean. Cincinnati, top 3 scorers. I go on and down the list. Essentially, and of course, UConn. Oh, yeah, by the way, they lose 5 guys to the NBA draft. This is going to be a completely different looking Big East conference when we get to January and February.
You saw those 81 points that UConn averaged. Well, 71 of them were divided among 6 players who are no longer here. The 5 draft picks you mentioned, and Rashad Anderson, and all he was the leading 3-point field goal scorer in school history. Jim Calhoun said, in 35 years of coaching, I've never had so many new players, so little experience returning. It's going to be interesting. And some of the early season preseason practices have been very interesting and spirited. That's a travel violation on Quinnipiac. Way got the rebound, came down, and fell down.
We talked about their inability in their first exhibition game to play against the 1-3-1. They have so many little things they want to work on. Individual offensive drills, also running their man-to-man, running their stuff against a 2-3 zone, underneath out of bounds like we're seeing here. They just hadn't yet got to the 1-3-1 zone, actually put their own team in a pickle because of it.
9 turnovers on Quinnipiac. Gavin Edwards back in for the Huskies. He's a freshman from Gilbert, Arizona.
I really like him.
Yeah, he had a terrific first exhibition game. Not so in the second, where he had just 1.1 rebound in 8 minutes, but very active, a little bit like Josh Boone, but without the physical dimensions of the New Jersey Nets draft pick.
Better hair.
Price with the foul line jumper. Rebound down. Mario Anderson, he dribbled it off his foot, and Adrian picks up the loose change. And another opportunity for a 3-point play. And that's going to be the 3rd foul on Carl Anderson.
Sometimes it's better to be fortunate than to be good. Oh, look what I found. And it's also good to play at home, although I do think that was a block.
3 fouls on Carl Anderson. A year ago against UConn, he fouled out in 8 minutes.
Is that bad? I mean, at least he was productive. He was gaining fouls at a rapid pace.
Right. Well, he's ahead of the pace, at least in terms of staying in the game. Anderson, very efficient in the exhibition season, scoring 41 points. 7 points now for Adrian, and the UConn lead is 14. Carl Anderson to DeMario Anderson. Step back over Robinson. Rebound weak side Dyson. Dyson's got 11 points in the first half. 6:20 remaining. Edwards to Robinson. Quinnipiac in the, what do we got here now? Man-to-man. So 1-3-1, a couple of possessions ago. Dyson trying to get some motion to the offense. Shot clock inside 10. We haven't said that much tonight when UConn's had the ball. Robinson to Edwards. Puts it on the floor. The jumper in the lane. Rebound Gonzalez. 15-4 UConn run in the last 5:20 has opened up the biggest lead of the night at 14. Good quick step to the hole will get Way to the free throw line. Way was part of a triumvirate of Quinnipiac players who had an outstanding year 2 years ago at Cecil Community College in Maryland. They went 31-3, and they were ranked #1 in the country for 8 weeks. Way was on that team, and so was Adam Gonzalez and Victor Akanyanju.
Well, Quinnipiac obviously very excited, opening the brand new TD Bank North Center. It's a dual-purpose facility, 2 different arenas, one for hockey and one, of course, for basketball, and eliminating the usefulness of the Burt Kahn Center. But that's fantastic for Quinnipiac and Joe DeSantis. You know, the NEC, how about this for a stat? Last 12 years, they're yet to have a repeat champion in their tournament championship. So it's essentially anybody's ballgame, and Quinnipiac feels like this is the year they can compete.
Well, they got to the finals in 2002, lost to Central Connecticut. Central Connecticut won its first title. Monmouth, the defending champion. The men's and women's basketball teams and hockey teams will be housed in the new arena, which is not on the Quinnipiac campus. Robinson, entry pass deflected to Mario Anderson at the other end. Misses, and the rebound pulled down by Ben Eaves, a freshman from England. Prepped the year at Worcester Academy in Massachusetts. And Akanyanju got a piece of that Price shot. He was the second leading shot blocker of the Northeast Conference last year. He had 30 of them. Second for Quinnipiac tonight. And here comes Dyson at the 5-minute mark.
Quinnipiac has settled down offensively, but they cannot contain Jerome Dyson defensively, and they've missed far too many bunnies around the basket, whether they get them blocked or they've just rushed shots because they've gotten shots blocked. And if not for that, this is less than a 10-point game. We're talking about a 5-point game. Joe DeSantis' club is coming out as they said they would. They're going to play their game, spread you out, 4 out, 1 in, and try and penetrate and kick out.
Dyson at the line. Joe DeSantis told me, we've never been accused of being a great defensive team. We have to learn how to make stops, and if we do, I think we can be as good as any team in our league. A year ago, Quinnipiac averaged 73.5 points per game, but gave up 74. They were 12-16, 7-11 in the league. They tied for 8th with St. Francis of New York. It is an 11-team conference, the NEC. In the conference tournament, they lost their first game in the quarterfinals to Fairleigh Dickinson. Akanyanju misses the layup at the other end. Finally winds up in Wiggins' lap.
Akanyanju's second straight dead layup that he's missed, and nobody home to block the shot.
Well, you don't want your big guy throwing the ball with no angle at all for the entry, and I don't know what Gonzalez is trying to do there. Went up behind the back, right into Wiggins' shins. And as Dyson drives baseline, he gets hammered and gets a trip back to the line. Foul will be on Akanyanju.
Well, watch the fundamentals. He does not travel on the pump fake. Most likely call an official is going to make is you pump fake, you move both feet before you take that big lead step. Dyson does not, knows how to go in there, draw a foul. If you're that good a shooter, the key is to get to the free throw line. Nothing drives a coach more crazy than when his best shooter only goes to the line 20 times in a year.
Well, Jim Calhoun will be spending the early part of the season searching for combinations. It's something he really hasn't had to do in recent years because they've always had an impressive nucleus returning. They've sort of been reloading year after year for the last 15 years. But he'll want to know, well, does Dyson and Price work better than, say, Wiggins and Dyson or Wiggins and Price? During the exhibition season, at times, you saw 3 of those guards together on the floor when they went very small.
Well, this team is not that dissimilar. There's a lot more youth, but not that dissimilar team post-national championship 2 years ago, where you had an exodus of Ben Gordon and Emeka Okafor to the NBA, and you're still searching for an identity. That's really what they're looking for. Is A.J. Price going to be the A.J. Price that he was when they recruited him? Is Hashim Thabit going to be able to give them something at the offensive end? Or are they going to have to count on Jeff Adrian to carry them, which right now he's been the most consistent threat, along with Jerome Dyson at the offensive end. They need better production out of A.J. Price.
Well, they're getting it out of Adrian tonight. He's got 9. Adrian a year ago was a 61% shooter. And so far tonight, he's knocked down 4 of his 6 shots. The UConn lead is 15 at the 4-minute mark. DeMario Anderson to Gonzalez, who was yet to score. And he's called for the palming violation. So that's 2 on Quinnipiac and 11 turnovers on the Bobcats. 3:57 to go in the half. Quinnipiac really struggling to get anything going on offense.
This is going to be a very interesting Connecticut team. Yeah. Young, the fastest team I've had in 21 years, the quickest team I've had in 21 years, the least experienced team I've had in 21 years. So remember, when you're broadcasting, keep those hands up. The ball could be coming at any moment in time.
Got to protect the diet beverages. Jim Calhoun said, I need to show a more human side to determine who can handle what, talk to them individually much more than I have in the past. And in the practices I've attended, Doug, you've seen a lot of that. Pulling guys aside, going one-on-one with them.
Really kind of patrolling the court, allowing his assistants to do a lot of the hand-in-hand coaching. And then he'll pull a guy aside or he'll just make a comment. And I mean, all eyes on the captain of the ship when he talks. And there's nothing like when you have a commander like a Jim Calhoun. You watch a practice and you understand that he has the respect of everyone in the gym because everybody stops what they're doing and pays direct attention to what he's saying.
Turnover on Marcus Johnson, number 9 for UConn. Johnson nearly came away with the steal. Mario Anderson lost his footing. A lot of guys slipping and sliding on the floor tonight. It was an unusually warm mid-November day in southern New England. 2 days in a row that we've had that warm weather. Another warm day expected tomorrow when the UConn football team will host Pittsburgh at Rentschler Field in East Hartford. Nice spin move down low for Akinyanju, but he had nowhere to go after he did it. Now play getting very, very ragged, and coming away with it is Austrie. Misses the shot, but there for the putback was Marcus Johnson. He's got 4.
And that's where he can be effective. Needs to continue to improve his jump shot, but he should be a threat defensively to run through passes, slash to the basket, get tip-ins and dunks. He's such a long, lengthy, beautiful-looking athlete. Johnson
had a stretch last year, early in the year, where in a 4-game stretch he scored 64 points, but just found it very difficult to get playing time because of the depth on that UConn team.
Were they talented, Lester?
Particularly at that wing spot where they had Rashad Anderson and Denham Brown. Inside Thabit, and we'll see Thabit go to the free throw line again, where, as we mentioned, he has really struggled in the preseason, and that is something that could haunt UConn if he finds gets a lot of time at the free throw line late in games.
I mean, we talked about last year's UConn team. It was fundamentally flawed. You can't have it. When you have Rashad Anderson and Denham Brown, neither are really a ball handler. So you'd have Marcus Williams out there by himself.
Playing 38 minutes.
Yeah, playing 38 minutes. And look, Craig Austrie is not at that level. If you had an A.J. Price, heck, if you even had a Doug Wiggins, now all of a sudden you would give yourself a real chance, and especially when you play against a George Mason, a team that's playing with 3 ball handlers, and instead of being a mismatch at the offensive end, it's actually a mismatch at the defensive end.
And I think on occasions, Doug, in the last 2 years, we saw Marcus Williams was a brilliant ball handler, just a great passer. Made the transition pretty well in the NBA, but at times I think we saw him turn the ball over late in games, very possibly because of fatigue.
Yeah, and trying to do too much. And we don't feel like anybody else can create a shot, because Brown and Anderson, not really guys that put the ball on the deck and create their own shot.
Right now, Marcus Williams, the backup to Jason Kidd at the point for the Nets. Pass inside, in and out of the hands of Akinyanju. Shot clock did not recycle. It's down to 10. Gonzalez. Now the shot clock is at 5 away. Is going to try to do something one-on-one with Adrian. The runner, no good. And we will get a blocking foul on the Huskies. Looks like it will be on Craig Austrie. Austrie a year ago was second on the team in assists, a distant second to Marcus Williams, who, according to Jim Calhoun, was the best passer he's ever coached, and he's had a few good ones.
I played against Ron Sheffer in this building. Ron could really pass the basketball. But Marcus Williams, I think he will be a lot like a Mark Jackson type at the NBA level. Played for a long time. He's really continued to develop his long-range jump shot. If you saw the last preseason game of the year where he just destroyed the New York Knicks, the Nets are in love with him, and they know that whenever Jason Kidd decides to call it quits, they have their point guard of the future. I think you'll see them play him together with Jason Kidd a lot, especially with Vince Carter not just being a free agent at the end of this year, but also having some knee problems.
Williams had 8 rebounds in his opener. His UConn teammate Josh Boone is out with an injury, injured shoulder, underwent surgery, and he'll be out for a good while longer. Adrian is called for the travel, and the play getting very, very ragged here in the first half. 10 turnovers for UConn and 11 on Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac has 5 field goals and 11 turnovers.
Well, Jim Calhoun's nearly out at midcourt yelling at AJ that it's his job to go and get the ball from Adrian. It's not Jeff Adrian's fault that he travels. Believe it or not, big guy can travel. Never his fault.
You didn't happen to play guard, did you, Doug?
I might have played a game or two at the point position.
Partner led the country in assists one year at Oklahoma State. So if some errant passes do head our way, I'm expecting you to protect the broadcast.
See, I didn't catch the passes. I threw the basket.
The runner by Crafton misses everything. Quinnipiac is shooting 20.7%. Dyson lost the handle. He goes flying. And it was last touched by Quinnipiac.
I think that's instead of calling a foul. It was probably off Dyson, but instead of calling a foul, he just rewarded the ball to UConn.
Dyson to inbound. He's got 12 points. Only player in double figures for either team.
I'll give it to him. The beat was open inside, had his man sealed.
Price down low, Adrian. Backs in on Way, draws the double, and he's called for the travel. 11 turnovers on UConn. A year ago, UConn was 11th in the Big East in turnover margin. Husky team that went 30-4, shared the Big East regular season title with Villanova. Both went 14-2. They split their 2 regular season meetings. And Cosgrove got the ball caught on his hip, and his feet continued to move. So that's a travel, and the 12th turnover for Joe DeSantis. Joe DeSantis,
he was a heck of a player. Over 1,900 points scored at Fairfield.
He didn't turn the ball over 12 times in a month at Fairfield. He was the prototypical combination guard. Second all-time leading scorer and second all-time in assists in Fairfield history. Ball deflected out of bounds, so it will be UConn ball. .22 seconds left on the shot clock. Inbound to Adrian, out to Price. And away from the play, we're going to get a foul called on Stanley Robinson. Coming up on halftime, you see those new banners? Well, they are changing the whole banner system. We'll tell you about it in a chat with Athletic Director Jeff Hathaway. Doug and I will run down the all preseason Big East team. We'll also have some first half highlights and the Oppenheimer Big East coach. And here's a clue. He's in the Hall of Fame.
You've been sending me stats, emailing me stats all week. What is the most turnovers in a half combined with 2 teams? We need to find that out.
We might be approaching.
There's a house record.
And away from the play, another turnover. The offensive foul called on Akinyanju. So that will be his second.
There's a point of diminishing return with the officials. I understand they're trying to clean it up.
Well, Quinnipiac has 13 fouls, 12 turnovers, 5 field goals. Final minute of the half. Adrian to Price, right side Dyson. Down low Adrian, backs his way in, spins. Rebound Akinyanju, and the shot clock is off. Cosgrove. Well, my goodness. That was a bounce. That was one of those passes Jim Calhoun said you better be on the lookout for, except it didn't come our way, and it was the other team that threw it.
I hit the Priest once when I played at Notre Dame. Hit him right in the head, and I may be going to hell for it. I'll tell you this is actually a perfect setup for Jim Calhoun. Not just, yes, the game has been ugly, but you get a chance 18 seconds to go, and this is situational coaching. You know, working, let's play as if the game is tied. Let's play as if we're down 2. Let's play as if we're down 1. Situational coaching that you're not going to get in any practice, because now all of a sudden you have the real clock going. You can't do it again. You have the officials. You have officials that are calling carrying violations and offensive fouls and screens. So this is actually not only a good move, but a good teaching situation for the young Huskies.
And the Huskies can look forward to 6 more days of practice before their next game. They don't play again until a week from tonight against Central Arkansas in Hartford in the first of 3 straight days in the Hispanic College Fund Classic, a new tournament. 6 teams, 3 days. UConn will play Central Arkansas, Fairfield, and Mississippi in successive days. 10 seconds to go in the half. Price, defended by Jason Wilson. loses the handle, then feeds Adrian down low. Well executed. And Joe DeSantis gets a timeout with 2 seconds left. And he'll try to see if they can run something. Quinnipiac has not had a basket, Doug, for 9 minutes and 2 seconds.
Well, this is quality execution, with the exception of the fact that A.J. Price actually missed Jeff Adrian the first time he came open. When he stops right there, Jeff Adrian has his man behind him. He's still open, but he's still open because this is Quinnipiac. Watch, now he has him, bang, right there. He's supposed to get the basketball. This is the rush. If you don't play competitive basketball for 2 years, it's foreign to you. I mean, I was a guy who transferred. I can tell you the first game back, you just, even though you played the exhibition games, energy coming out of your ears, 2 years off, I couldn't imagine. That's the type of things that AJ has to tighten up, because they should be 13-0 heading into a big game down in Baton Rouge in the non-conference. They have a schedule. You know, in years past, Jim Calhoun's been criticized for his soft schedule. I would normally agree with that, but this year with all the youth, it's the right thing to do.
2 seconds left. The inbound pass to Cosgrove, and he lost the handle, and he managed to turn. They had 2.2 seconds left to do something, and they managed to turn the ball over in that time. 0.7 of a second left, and UConn will inbound on the side just to the right of Joe DeSantis.
Another situation where you should be able to get a shot with 0.7 to go. You can catch and release a jump shot.
Johnson to inbound.
Every schedule, remember, is different based upon the team you have. With this type of youth, this is absolutely a solid schedule. Put the bunnies at first, and then play the tougher teams later.
Inside, it's deflected and winds up in the hands of Crafton. So UConn ends the half with a 23-6 run. An interesting debut for Jerome Dyson in his very first game. He's got 12. Quinnipiac at halftime. Bob Picozzi along with Doug Gottlieb back at Gamble Pavilion, and let's take a look at some first half highlights. And we'll begin with A.J. Price, who struggled with his shot, only 1 for 5, did have 4 assists in the first half.
Yeah, he hit the first bucket of the game, and this is where he's got to get to the basket or hit that pull-up jump shot and start to get some more confidence offensively. But the confidence continues to grow for Jeff Adrian around the basket. All the little cheapies he can get. 11 points, 5 rebounds, even blocked a couple of shots. And then, look, UConn got great contribution from Jerome Dyson. Hits 3 threes, the ability to put the ball on the floor, create, go to the deck, and Jerome Dyson can really shoot the basketball when he's on balance, and he has a tendency to be on balance more so than any other kid on this team.
Dyson leading the way with 12 points, but the numbers were very ugly in many ways, especially the turnovers, Doug. They combined for 27 turnovers and only 18 field goals.
Wow. I mean, I wish I could find a better way to describe that, but wow, my vocabulary is not thick enough. 27 turnovers. Somebody will be touching some lines tomorrow in practice, because you have to value possession of the basketball, whether it's in the NEC with Quinnipiac or in the Big East with UConn. The more possessions you have where you don't turn over and you get a shot up, the better chance you have to be effective.
Tonight's Big East Coaches Spotlight is brought to you by Oppenheimer Funds. Let's take a closer look at UConn coach Jim Calhoun. 733 career wins, and among the very impressive statistics for Jim Calhoun, in his 14 NCAA appearances at UConn, 38 wins and 12 losses in tournament games. So he has a 7.601 loss percentage in NCAA tournament wins. And his UConn Huskies lead by 19 points as we head into the second half. Back with the second half at Gamble after this. UConn has never lost its first game of the season at Gamble Pavilion. They are 17-0 in Gamble openers, and they lead on opening night at Gamble Pavilion 35-16 over Quinnipiac. Bobcats ball to start the second half. DeMario Anderson in the lineup to begin the half. Carl Anderson back in with 3 fouls. This is DeMario with the 3 over Johnson. Air ball, and the rebound is pulled down by Jeff Adrian. Quinnipiac 5 for 26 from the floor. Thabit with the miss on the jump hook. Cosgrove quickly in the front court. First team All-State player at Andover High School in Massachusetts last year. Coach's son, his dad James is the coach at Adelphi, and Curtis Kelly comes in replacing Thabit. Thabit has struggled in his first game.
Well, he struggled offensively, and he needs to take his time, gather his legs, and go up strong, and understand he's 7'3". He can, if he keeps the basketball high, he can take his time and really power the basketball up towards the rim.
Only 2 rebounds for Thabit. Ball fake inside by Carl Anderson will result in drawing a foul.
Anderson is a smart veteran player, but probably got away with the travel there, traveling underneath the pump fake.
Anderson, very good free throw shooter a year ago, 7th best in the Northeast Conference at 79%. Out of Don Bosco Prep in Ramsey, New Jersey. Doug, that's the same high school that sent a young man named Mike Teal to Rutgers at quarterback. And it has been a day of celebration after a long night of celebration on the Scarlet Knights campus after their dramatic win over Louisville last night.
If I would have told you 10 years ago that Rutgers and Louisville will be playing for, and one of them will have a chance to play for a BCS national title, and we're in November, you would have told me I was absolutely crazy. That's the Big East Conference in football has officially arrived this year.
Well, in Greg Schiano's second game as coach at Rutgers, they lost 61-0. In his third game, they lost 50-0. And in his 8th game, he lost 80-7. And now in year 6, his team is 9-0 and in the driver's seat right now to win the Big East title if they can run the table.
We'll go to West Virginia next week. By the way, I'd love to be Greg Schiano's agent right about now because fielding calls from all over.
Curtis Kelly called for the foul setting the screen. This is Carl Anderson. So he's much more active here in the early going of the second half.
That's nice. Bringing Thabit away from the basket and then using the basket as another defender. He uses his body nicely to block away the 7'3" Thabit.
He's got 5. Quinnipiac starting the second half in a zone, Doug, at 1-3-1.
Sagging man-to-man, occasionally mixing up a little zone.
Dyson goes to the court hard. Foul will be on Van Crafton, his second and 8 on the team. Quinnipiac, after tonight, will open its home schedule on Wednesday against Concordia. Next 3 games will be home for Quinnipiac. They'll also play Lehigh on the 22nd in New Hampshire on the 26th. They won't open their new arena until January 27th against LIU.
Beautiful 4,000-seat arena. Not a bad seat in the house.
Joe DeSantis was saying how they can't wait to get into that arena. I asked him, I said, now are your office going to be there, women's basketball, hockey? I said, how about athletic administration? He says, no, they're going to stay put, but they'll have a few people over keeping their eye on us to make sure that we don't screw up.
Your big brother's always watching, 20 hours a week. I want to go over.
The seat 4,000, 18,000 square feet. The shot by Price, no good. There's Thabit with the offensive rebound. Kick out Marcus Johnson. And way up in the air for the rebound, DeMario Anderson, and the foul on Price.
Now Price just looks out of rhythm going to the basket. Trying to pump fake, fade away. Needs to just go up strong, go to the rim. He's plenty big enough, plenty explosive enough.
Marcus Johnson departs, replaced by Stanley Robinson. Robinson very active off the boards in the first half. 6 rebounds in only 11 minutes off the bench. UConn has out-rebounded Quinnipiac 31-18. Year in, year out, the Huskies among the best rebounding teams in the country. They were second a year ago. Down low, Carl Anderson kick out to Crafton, and Crafton nails the 3. He had 7 of them in the exhibition game against UMass Lowell.
How about this? Crafton coming into the game, 345 career field goals. Only 37 were from 2. That guy just lives behind that line.
7-0 Quinnipiac run. Remember, they went the last 9 minutes of the first half without a basket. Thabit up high. Down low, Dyson spins and just reaching out and grabbing him is Crafton. That would be his 3rd. And number 3 on the Bobcats here in the second half. And Crafton will be replaced by Adam Gonzalez. Gonzalez, as you mentioned, Doug, big-time junior college player, National Junior College Player of the Year as a freshman at Lackawanna Junior College. His team played in national championship game. That was 5 years ago. Did not play 3 years ago. Spent his sophomore year at Cecil Community College. Boy, there is just no flow whatsoever to this game.
If he had a collegiate passport, he would need a new passport. He has so many stamps. That's what you're saying.
That foul is on Way, and that will be 3 on him. Quinnipiac really running into personal foul trouble.
Well, Crafton hits the 3-point shot. No reason to foul down at this end. Now he's got 3 fouls. Now he's out.
Thabit with the miss. Here's Quinnipiac, a 3-on-1, and Way with the finish. So the Bobcats are out hustling UConn at the beginning of the second half of this one, much the way they did in the first 15 minutes in Hartford last year. Price with the miss. Rebound to Mario Anderson. I don't know what Joe DeSantis said to his troops at halftime, but they have come out with much more energy in the first 3+ minutes of the second half. To Mario Anderson on the left. Looks like they're trying to run everything through Carl Anderson, Doug.
Well, they are. They're trying to bring Thabit out on the floor and then make him cover inside after running him around a little bit.
Way with the miss, but he gets his own rebound. Still alive. Adrian comes away. There's nearly one of those errant passes to us that Jim Calhoun warned us about. And instead, Dyson will get to the line as he drives down the lane.
You talked about what Quinnipiac's doing offensively. A little 4-out, 1-in, but they're beginning their offense by Anderson coming up and setting a UCLA screen, so he'll catch the ball at the top and then relocate down the low post once he throws the ball down. Just creating some movement, but because the beat can't cover out in the floor, they bring Anderson up, and it allows the pressure to be broken.
Third foul on Gonzalez, 4 in the team, and Dyson hits the free throw. Dyson, when he was a junior at Churchill High School, he played 2 months in Spain. Last year played in the prestigious Capital Classic High School All-Star game in Washington, D.C. Tremendous quickness. And George Blaney, Jim Calhoun's longtime friend and assistant coach here at UConn, was telling us before the game that Dyson is probably, of the guards, the best chest-to-chest, man-on-man defender. He said, in fact, Jim Calhoun thinks he might be the best on-the-ball guard defender since Ricky Moore, who was the best in Jim Calhoun's 20 years at that.
No, he was a great guard. I mean, a big reason they won the Final Four. Not just the fact that they had Rip Hamilton or
job he did on Trajan Langdon in the championship game in '99 was one to recall. Thabit called for the foul away from the play. That's 2 on him. UConn won the national championship in '99, then again in 2004.
Great opportunity here for Wiggins. A.J. Price is not playing particularly well, hasn't been back on defense, missing a couple shots, looking a little bit out of sorts. You want to earn some minutes, this is the time to do so.
Carl Anderson down low, up and over Thabit. So he's got 5.
It's the age and experience of Anderson, 22 years old, going against the young Thabit in his first collegiate game. Taking him out on the floor, spinning on him, using his body, learning how to play himself against a 7'3" player.
Quinnipiac scored 16 points in the first half, and they already have 10 in the first 4.5 minutes of the second half. And Stanley Robinson with the jumper. His 3rd and 4th points of the night. Robinson, second team Parade Magazine All-American at Huffman High School in Alabama. Left side, Carl Anderson. Way gives to Cosgrove. Crafton with Dyson all over. Kick out left side, Way for 3.
All created by the space within the offense, bringing Anderson high, and then the dribble penetration, the help comes. Nice pass by Crafton.
Way's had a couple of very productive games in his career against UConn. 16 points, 16 rebounds a year ago, 14 points tonight. So Chris Way, the senior from Brooklyn. UConn by 10. Huskies led it by 19 at the half. UConn not the only Big East team tipping off its season tonight. As we check the out-of-town scoreboard, Cincinnati at home beating Howard. That's in the Jim Thorpe Association Basketball Classic. West Virginia with a 13-point lead over Mount St. Mary's, which, like Quinnipiac, comes from the Northeast Conference. Notre Dame with the lead over IPFW by 30. St. John's leading North Florida by 8. And Syracuse in the BCA Invitational with a 15-point lead over yet another Northeast Conference team, St. Francis of New York. Both St. Francis's are members of the 11-team Northeast Conference, St. Francis of Pennsylvania and St. Francis of Brooklyn.
Good segue. Very nice.
Buddy Bob Valvano once coached there, St. Francis of Brooklyn.
We're talking about Syracuse, a team that, you know, traditionally you have a couple traditional powers in the Big East that are still remain strong. Obviously entered the Hall of Fame at the same time as Jim Calhoun, Jim Boeheim talking about. I think their team has a chance to be pretty darn good, chance to compete for this league title. Adding Paul Harris to a senior class that they've been good. They haven't been what they thought they would be when they were recruited after winning a national title. But now is their chance to shine. No more Jerry McNamara bailing them out at the last second. Guys like Terrence Roberts, Darrell Watkins, they have some players that can make plays.
And away from the play, we're going to get a foul on Crafton. That's number 4 on Crafton. Crafton's got 4. Carl Anderson 4. 3 on Way. 3 on Akinyanju. 3 on Gonzalez. Joe DeSantis only has 11 guys dressed. I think Joe's eligibility has run out.
Yeah, I think so.
Joe was a second-round draft pick by the then Washington Bullets in the 1979 draft. Wound up playing in Europe following his standout career at Fairfield out of St. Nicholas of the Tolentine High School in the Bronx, right down the street from his beloved Yankee Stadium. He's a huge Yankees fan. Gonzalez has his shot rejected by Robinson, and then here's Adrian on the break to Wiggins. Can't finish, but he'll get to the line.
Well, this team averaged 8 blocks a game last year, but this is what Robinson can bring to the table. Incredible athleticism, whether it's from the 3 or the 4 spot. Watch him tracking the ball, the perfect timing. And a block shot not only intimidates the opponent, but also begins that fast break and allowed Doug Wiggins to get a chance to knock down 2 free throws.
Wiggins was a verbal commitment to St. John's, and then changed his mind, creating some very hard feelings on the part of the folks in Jamaica, Queens, and Coach Norm Roberts, and between the 2 respective coaching staffs, we might add.
There's a reason they call it a verbal commitment. Now, you give a guy your word, that's one thing, but that's why they have the written word. Everything changes on a month-by-month basis in a kid's mind, and you know, it's one thing if you grew up in New York City, but if you grew up in East Hartford dreaming of playing for the Huskies and you get an opportunity to do so, I can't really fault him, especially considering UConn, he wasn't on their radar early in the recruitment period.
That foul will be on Curtis Kelly. He's out of Queens, went to Rice High School. Robinson will sit down for the Huskies. 4.6 rebounds.
There's always hard feelings when you don't get the kid. You know, there's hard feelings at Maryland. They didn't get Dyson. They didn't get Rudy Gay.
Drop step. And DeMario Anderson with a nice move.
I'll never forget Paul Hewitt came up and visited us up at ESPN. Still hard feelings they didn't get Emeka Okafor. UConn didn't recruit him till late. He was going to Vanderbilt, Rice, maybe Georgia Tech. And UConn came in late, got Emeka Okafor, and of course the rest is history.
Okafor out of Houston and was the National Player of the Year, leading the Huskies to their 2nd national title in 2004. There's the shooting story for Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac had 5 field goals in the entire first half. They had 5 in the first 4.5 minutes. Second half now have 6. And it is an 8-point UConn lead on opening night, where the Huskies have won 54 of their last 57 home openers. Jim Calhoun in his UConn career, 485 wins and 177 losses entering his 21st season. They have been to 19 consecutive postseason tournaments, all but in his first year. In his second year at the helm, they won the NIT, which was a accomplishment which really turned this program around in a hurry and began heading in the right direction.
Here's all you have to say. This is how you know you built a great program. You win 30 games last year, and people say it was a disappointing year. 30-4.
They were the consensus pick going into the NCAA tournament to win it. Another turnover for the Huskies. They're 16th. DeMario Anderson with the air ball. Wiggins tried to save, but committed the cardinal sin. Threw it blindly underneath the basket they're defending, and it went right into a Quinnipiac lap. Adrian with the rebound, and here comes Dyson. Adrian already with 8 rebounds. And that one was last touched by Stanley Robinson. Make it 9 rebounds for Adrian, along with 11 points. So Adrian just 1 rebound away from his 2nd career double-double. Jim Calhoun removing Wiggins from the lineup. Adrian certainly the most experienced of the few Huskies who are returning. Craig Austrie the other one, but the problem is with the incoming class so guard heavy, that's really going to cut down on Austrie's playing time. Sure. Not so with Adrian. Left side jumper, DeMario Anderson, way with another rebound. Then he had the ball deflected out of bounds by a Husky.
Well, let's be honest, Austria was brought in here as a stopgap because of the Marcus Williams situation, the suspension first semester last year, and not having A.J. Price at all last year because of suspension. Now you bring in a wealth of talent at guard. He's probably a backup, although he can play himself out of it. And a perfect opportunity to do so is when he gets these short bits, spurts of minutes, especially when A.J. Price continues to struggle a bit.
Sabit back in for the Huskies. Cosgrove puts it on the floor, then tried to dump it down to Akin Yanju. He juggles it. Now DeMario Anderson goes baseline and comes around the other side of the rim. It looks like he has an idea at the offensive end.
No, he averaged 14 a game at Central before he transferred to Quinnipiac, and he used that rim as another defender because Hashim Thabit can't go through the rim and block the shot.
Quinnipiac is on an 18-4 run. They had cut it to 6 before that Huskies hoop.
Nice
by
high-low
Adrian,
pass.
he's got 13.
Nice high-low pass by Thabit.
So Quinnipiac hanging around like they did in the first half a year ago before eventually succumbing by a huge score. UConn scored 65 points in the second half of this game last year. Shot 68% in the second half. Dyson. Robinson to Thabit. Nice ball moving inside to Adrian. And the rebound last touched by who? By UConn. Jim Calhoun doesn't believe it. He questions Brian O'Connell, who points to Mike Kitts, says, go ask him. He called it.
Funny, I had an interesting conversation after practice one day with Jim Calhoun about the officials, and he said that he gets the bad rap. It's actually George Blaney, who's much harder on the officials, and he's the reason he gets teased so often.
Could have fooled me. Timeout. The UConn lead is 8. That 19-point halftime lead's been cut to 8. You know, Doug, UConn has led the country in blocked shots in each of the last 5 years. They have picked up where they left off tonight.
Well, Jim Calhoun's called this the quickest team that he's ever coached, but it's a very athletic, very long team. And whereas at times they're beaten out of possessions, they can make up for it with their speed, quickness, length, and blocking shots.
And they already have 9 blocked shots tonight. Quinnipiac ball. Bobcats had 15 turnovers in the first half, 1 in the first 8.5 minutes of the second half. They have been much more efficient at the offensive end. In the first 8+ minutes of the second half, Cosgrove for 3. Knocks it down. And just like that, Quinnipiac is within 5.
Like that. They continue to mix and match their defenses, give them some 2-3 looks, and then match up in a man-to-man as the shot clock winds down.
20-6 Quinnipiac run to begin the second half, a run that's lasted for 9 minutes.
I don't know what was in the orange wedges at halftime.
Rice creates a little space and then shoots over Cosgrove. That was a mismatch. Only the second field goal for Price. The first one came in the opening minute.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a big one. Momentum was on the side of Quinnipiac. A little step back jump shot, 17 feet. Beautiful move.
Quinnipiac doing this with Anderson, their most effective offensive scorer, on the bench with 4 fouls. Another blocked shot, but Dyson couldn't save. And it will be Bobcats ball.
See, that's the beauty to being a guard in this system now, because you can be beaten and understand you're funneling to Hashim Thabit, and he has tremendous timing. This is something you just cannot teach.
Left side, Gonzalez, who is yet to score. Way defended by Adrian. Cosgrove picked up by Price. UConn extending the man-to-man half-court defense on this possession. Nice screen set by Akin Yanju, and it results in a DeMario Anderson open look, but he can't knock it down. Here's Price. Stop and go move and a reach-in foul will be called on the Bobcats.
The last 2 possessions, A.J. Price has decided, you know what, I can do what I want with the basketball. And that's what Jim Calhoun and his staff have been looking for. They need him to be a 15 to 20 point a night guy. They need him to, hey, we need a get on my back type of guy, and A.J. Price has to be the guy in that perimeter.
Price played on a couple of state championship teams at Amityville High School, a high school that sent Jason Frazier to Villanova. Had 133-point field goals in his high school career. Adrian got that offensive rebound, so he now has a double-double. 13 points, 10 rebounds. He couldn't get it to go, his second career double-double. Right side three, Cosgrove no good. Here's Gonzalez from the left. Rebound pulled down by Adrian. Is 11. Up the floor to Price. Price in the lane. And he'll draw the blocking foul. So Price thinking much more shot here in the second half.
Yeah, and this is how you know a guy's a smart, skilled scorer. Quinnipiac had a chance to take a charge, and instead of running over the defender, instead of running over Gonzalez, he jumps to the side. You jump to the side, you're going to get a block call because you can't move and adjust yourself. Can't teach guys to know how to have timing to block shots, how to know how to do the little nuances of being a scorer, or how to pass the basketball. You can teach almost anything else, but basketball IQ plays like that one you can't teach.
Fouling Gonzalez is fourth, so Gonzalez, Crafton, and Carl Anderson all with 4 for Quinnipiac. And 10 team fouls on Quinnipiac, so UConn will really have an opportunity to add to this lead if they can make their free throws. They'll spend the last 9.5 minutes of this half at the line. Price from the line tonight is 2 of 4. Averaged 28 points a game 3 years ago when he was a high school senior. Missed his freshman year with a life-threatening condition called arteriovenous malformation. He underwent surgery to correct that condition, received a medical clearance to play a year ago, but was suspended for violation of the university code of conduct. Had to sit out the entire year. Last touch by UConn. And we mentioned, Doug, that his dad, Tony, played at Penn, played in the Final Four. And Tony was adamant throughout the process that never once did AJ ever consider transferring, that he felt that his coach here at UConn, Jim Calhoun, was in his corner during his illness, during his suspension, and he said he never considered trying to take perhaps an easier path by starting anew somewhere else.
Yeah, I as a guy who's transferred because of my own situation at Notre Dame, I can tell you that it's going to be tough whenever he goes on the road. When they played that first road game, people don't forget, especially with the internet. Everybody knows what took place, and it's going to be up to him to show that he's the person that Jim Calhoun believes him to be, not the act that he committed while a member of the UConn basketball team.
The block shot by Thabi. I don't know whether that block shot was more like a catch. He caught the shot.
That's 11, by the way. That is a block shot.
And that's 6 block shots for Thabit.
And this is just so invaluable because it allows you to be beaten defensively. The air up there.
Akinyanju and Thabit got a hand on it. 19 seconds left in the shot clock as the Gamble crowd applauds the defensive effort by Thabit.
Well, the thing that they're impressed by is his ability to get better every day of practice. To just improve in leaps and bounds. That he really not only wants to be good, but is a quick learner.
Cosgrove gets a step on Austrie, dumps it inside to Akinyanju. Marcus Johnson rebound. Here's Dyson. Look at how quickly Dyson got to the rim. Nearly tipped in by Adrian. Cosgrove sets up Crafton for 3. Long rebound to Mario Anderson. Still alive and winds up in Thabit's lap. That's his 7th rebound. We approach the 8-minute mark. UConn by 9. They led it by 19 at the half. The Huskies will play their first 11 games of the season at home before they visit Morgantown for their Big East opener on December 30th against West Virginia. Dyson pass inside, deflected by Cosgrove, and that will be turnover number 18 for the Huskies. UConn has scored only 10 points the first 12 minutes of the second half. Another rebound for Thabit and another foul on the Bobcats. UConn by 9 with 7:42 remaining. This is the first of 20 home games this season for UConn. Huskies lead it by 9, and Doug, Jim Calhoun described Hashim Thabit by saying he has improved dramatically in the last 2 months. His upside is as high as Gamble Pavilion, and we have seen a much more confident, particularly at the defensive end and off the backboards, to beat here in the second half.
Just how long do you think these shorts are? I mean, those shorts are, I mean, they come down past his knees. I mean, that's a full body suit for me.
That would be a 42 long if it were a men's suit. Thabit knocks down the free throw.
You're gonna have, I mean, people are gonna have to come see these shorts in person. It's unbelievable the length of those shorts. Or Nike. I hope they never rip. They have to find another gallon of thread.
Another dozen seamstress to fix it. Lead up to 11 now, inside the 8-minute mark. And we're going to get a hold away from the ball on Stanley, right now on Austrie.
Yeah, Joe DeSantis has done a nice job with this team, calming them down, slowing them down. It's not really his style, but he's gotten them into their half-court offense. He's gotten them to kind of take a breath and attack the weakness of UConn, and that's at Thabit and Adrian. They don't cover that well on the floor, and run your offense through your bigs in order to relieve pressure and then penetrate and kick out. These are the little lessons you're going to learn. He's got a lot of road games. You know, you're playing guaranteed games when you come up and you collect a check and usually take a loss. But you have to keep your team together, and you have to take little bits and pieces of that information when you head into league play.
Gonzalez makes the 2 free throws. Joe DeSantis told me Gonzalez was in terrible shape when he arrived a year ago. He's a junior college transfer, but now he's in good shape, and we feel we can play him at the 1, the 2, or the 3. And he can make plays by himself or make plays for his teammates. And a quiet night offensively for Gonzalez. Those were his first 2 points. Price misses the shot but gets his own rebound. And he'll reset the offense up top to Dyson. Dyson had 12 first half points, only 2 so far in the second half. Right now you have 3 freshmen and a first-year sophomore on the floor for UConn.
A lot of standing. Robinson missed Johnson posting up, and now you get a travel, another turnover.
Number 19 for UConn. UConn has surpassed Quinnipiac in that department. The Bobcats have turned the ball over 1 time in the first 13 minutes of the second half.
And 15 the entire first half. So I think when you watch UConn, you have to watch them kind of in a linear fashion. You and I get a chance to call the game next week, Fairfield. I want to see not just how Hasheem Thabit progresses, but how A.J. Price progresses, how their offense looks. Remember, Kansas struggled mightily at the start of last year, and they were the best team at the end of the season in the Big 12. Yes, they lost the first game of the NCAA tournament, but they really improved as time went on.
Foul will be called on Way on setting the screen.
The only team I could really compare UConn to is Texas, who also replaces all 5 starters. Watched them play last night on ESPNU against Alcorn State, and they looked fantastic. They have a great freshman, Greg Durant.
Right. They ended the first half with a 47-9 run last night, after falling behind 9-1 in the opening moments.
I'm sure Rick Barnes had some choice words.
Robinson, nice look inside to Thabit. Now, there's a pretty good illustration of how he is a unfinished product offensively. He's 7'3", and he
have to dunk that. No, you have to dunk
virtually didn't leave the floor for that one, and barely got the ball above the rim.
And what you'll notice about Jim Calhoun is he doesn't take him out. He's got the hook for the guards, but for Hasheem Thabit, he does not get the hook out. And that's because he's trying to build self-confidence. The guards have so much self-confidence that he can't knock them off their plateau.
Price with the miss. DeMario Anderson quickly at the other end. Rebound kept alive. Adrian comes away. Here's a 2-on-1. Price and Dyson. Blocking foul on Cosgrove. Basket will not count. So that's number 4 on Dyson. Quinnipiac has 5 players now, right? With 4 fouls. Cosgrove, Crafton, Gonzalez, Way, and Carl Anderson. So Price will go to the line. Bobcats in serious foul trouble. Quinnipiac 26-30 in their season openers. Dyson at the line, not Price. And he can't get the first one to go. Crafton and Carl Anderson will replace Gonzalez and Akinyanju. This is the first of 2 opponents Quinnipiac will play this year that played in last year's NCAA tournament. The other one being the Northeast Conference League champion, Monmouth. Quinnipiac is young as well. They have 7 first-year players, including 6 freshmen.
But the bulk of the guys that are playing tonight, you got some age, you got some experience, especially with a guy like Anderson.
Left side jumper, Crafton no good. Rebound is pulled down by Thabit. That's his 9th.
Crafton, 23 years old. So you have some age, some experience. You remember that championship game, Fairleigh Dickinson playing at home, had the lead with under a minute to go, up 3, decides to foul and end up backfiring. Monmouth ends up getting the win, getting 2 quick buckets.
Dyson with the miss. Rebound Cosgrove. Here's a 3-on-2. Mario Anderson hits the pull-up. And Joe DeSantis gets a quick timeout with 5:06 remaining. And his club down by 8. So DeMario Anderson, in his first game in a Quinnipiac uniform, has scored 11 points.
Well, he shot 3 air balls from 3, but when he gets inside that line, he's been very solid. A good score from the mid-range and good balance. Now all of a sudden, Quinnipiac, this is just chipping away, bit by bit by bit. You're only down 8. You're playing against a young team that doesn't shoot free throws well. Joe DeSantis has his guys competing.
DeMario Anderson missed a significant portion of the late preseason. I mentioned in the first half that his mom, Lisa Duncan, passed away on Halloween. The funeral was last Tuesday. He didn't rejoin his teammates until practice on Wednesday, so he is behind. He clearly will be in the starting lineup and will play as many minutes as anyone on this team. When he was at Central Connecticut, you know who he scored his career high against? Quinnipiac. 32 points against Joe DeSantis. Now Joe's getting a chance to see what he can do for him. And tonight he's got 11 points.
Transferring in conference play. It'll be interesting when he
doesn't happen often.
When he goes back to his former home.
In between, he spent a year at the Global Institute of Technology in New York. Did not play there. But he has this year and 1 more year of eligibility. Not shy. He's taken 19 shots. Knocked down 5 of them. Price with a deep 3. Rebound way up in the air. Stanley Robinson then on the putback. Ball hit the bottom of the backboard.
Now you see the adjustments that DeSantis is making, and he has multiple players with 4 personal fouls. So when he can, he'll make the offense to defense substitution.
And he'll get Carl Anderson in there now.
Crafton, who's a dead-eye 3-point shooter.
Crafton 7 for 13 from 3-point range in the second exhibition game. He had 4 3-pointers in the first one. And he shot 41% from 3-point range last year. A 3 here would cut the lead to 5. Instead, it goes inside Carl Anderson, and there's Thabit with another block shot, his 7th. So in his first game in a UConn uniform, he's got 7 block shots and 9 rebounds. Most of it here in the second half.
You got a double-double without scoring 10 points.
Adrian, who has the double-double, the traditional one, 13 points, 13 rebounds. Shot clock down to 10. Price threw it inside to Thabit. He didn't have his hands up. But instead, Jim Calhoun is yelling at the passer. But Thabit has made his presence felt at the defensive end. A little like a Mecca Okafor. UConn by 8. Okay, Professor Gottlieb, what will be your grade on opening night for Hashim Thabit, who's got, by the way, 7 block shots and 10 rebounds?
Well, defensively, rebounding the ball, an A+. Anytime you go the hole against UConn, you're going to get it Thabited up. I don't know, I tried something. What I want you to watch, though, Bob, is the final block, not that one. Watch how he doesn't go for the pump fake. I talked to Tom Moore before the game, and he said, we were on him for about a week about not jumping at Jeff Adrian's pump fakes. And you know what? By about the 3rd day, he got it. So you can't teach that type of quick learning, and
right.
that's what they're amazed by is not necessarily his God-given gifts, but his ability to translate what he's being taught onto the actual practice floor now on the floor in a game.
And he's done it without fouling also.
Yeah.
It seems like he jumps straight up like all good shot blockers do.
Now he'll be tested in the Big East because you got Roy Hibbert, every bit as big as he is, not bigger. And then of course you have Gray, who's preseason player of the year at Pittsburgh.
DeMario Anderson with the miss and the rebound at the 3:20 mark to Dyson.
And Aaron Gray's only 6'10", but he is a very skilled player inside and a big wide body, and we'll see if he can stay out of foul trouble when he gets to the pen.
Another turnover for UConn. They're 21st. Way with the drive, counted in the foul. And now all of a sudden it gets even more interesting.
And just as we said, A.J. Price jumped to the side, watch Way. Same thing. A.J. Price sets his feet, he jumped to the side, Price moves. Good call.
Foul on Price is his second. So the lead is 6, and Way could cut it to 5.
You know, there's some folks that try to beat the traffic, and they may be leaving a bit early.
Price coming away hobbling a little bit. Now, I asked Joe DeSantis, I said, you know, they have all new players. Exhibition games aren't on TV. How do you scout this team? How do you prepare? And he said, well, their players may be new, but their coach isn't. We know that they're going to do the same thing. They're going to run, they're going to press, they're going to trap, and probably block a shot or two.
Pretty accurate scatter report. I actually had the same thing written down.
5-point lead at the 3-minute mark. And Price on the sideline. 3 guards in there now, Doug, with Dyson, Wiggins, and Austin. Down low, Adrian. Kick out Dyson. Left side, Austin. Wide open look. Can't knock it down. Rebound kept alive by DeMario Anderson. And here comes Quinnipiac. Down 5 with the ball. Who would have thunk it? Left side 3. Gonzalez. And Quinnipiac is within 2 with 2:33 remaining.
This is the problem when you don't have an A.J. Price that you believe coming into the season can be a scorer, and he's not playing up to that reputation. And you stand around offensively looking for somebody to make a play. Quinnipiac finds a mismatch. Austry's between 2 players, and Gonzalez open in the corner, former junior college player of the year. Oh, yeah. Now, who's going to make a play? Who's going to make a play for UConn? Last year, Marcus Williams tended to make the plays in this situation. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Dyson, who carried this team in the first half, but with the exception of transition play, has been non-existent at the half-court level in the second half? Can they get the ball inside to Autry? I mean, Adrian, excuse me.
Right. Well, Adrian certainly is their go-to presence at the offensive end down low. And again, Austry, Wiggins, and Dyson on the floor. 3-guard lineup with Adrian and Thabit. Wiggins comes around the screen. Up top, Austry. 2:15 to go. UConn by 2. Austry holds up a right fist to signal the play. UConn only has 3 field goals in the second half. Austry again. This time he knocks down to 3. He had only 10 of them all last year. His first points of this game. And now the lead is back up to 5. Cosgrove around the screen. Shot clock at 15. Gonzalez hit a big 3 last time. This time he can't get it to go. Tipped up and pulled down by Adrian. That's his 14th rebound. A new career high.
Not Craig Austry.
Well, he had 2 open looks in a row. Couldn't get the first one to go, but he buried the second one. So UConn will work clock now. Jim Calhoun will get a timeout. 19 left in the shot clock. 1:20 on the game clock. Huskies up 5.
And the expectations here in Storrs are that Craig Austry was to be beaten out. And over the last month of practice, he essentially has. But the beauty of a game is it's almost like new life. And if you can show you're a gamer, especially an end of gamer, you can play for anybody. And with A.J. Price struggling, hobble a little bit now by the ankle, you jump up and hit a big shot like that. They'll go into the coaches meetings tomorrow and say, you know what, Craig might be able to help us. We may need to give him one more look. Remember, they won the Maui Invitational with Austry as the point.
Indeed they did. Began the season with a win at Pepperdine and then 3 wins in the Maui before coming back home. We're at Gamble Pavilion on the campus of Storrs, University of Connecticut in Storrs, Connecticut. I'm Bob Picozzi, along with Doug Gottlieb. UConn led it by 19 at the half. Quinnipiac cut it to 2 with 2:33 remaining. There's your game set. Quinnipiac over the limit foul-wise. Every Quinnipiac foul will result in 2 UConn free throws. Huskies have the ball on the side. 14 seconds left. on the shot clock. What do you think they called in the huddle here, Doug?
Well, they're probably calling a quick hit, whether it's spread the floor out and allow Austria to penetrate and pitch.
Now, Thabit, not a good free throw shooter, out of the game. Robinson replaced him during the timeout.
It looks like they're going four corners, trying to penetrate and create something off the dribble.
Shot clock now at 10. Wiggins to Dyson. Defended by DeMario Anderson. Gets a step on him, and Anderson called for the hold. And again, Quinnipiac has UConn in the double bonus, so everything will be 2 free throws.
And Anderson, DeMario Anderson just not thinking there. You have to look at the opposite shot clock and understand you get under 10 seconds. Dyson's going one-on-one, and the rest of Quinnipiac's team needs to be in help.
Dyson 3 of 6 from the line tonight. That's his 16th point. And now Jim Calhoun makes some defensive substitutions. The big fellow, Thabit, will come back in. Marcus Johnson, very good defensive player in the perimeter, also in. So still 3 guards with Wiggins, Austria, and Dyson, along with Johnson and Thabit. Now evidently Johnson's going in for the shooter. But he can't because Dyson missed the free throw. What a huge offensive rebound for Jeff Adrian. That's a killer for Quinnipiac, down 6 with a minute to go. They couldn't afford to give up that offensive rebound. Here's Wiggins. UConn will work clock. They either foul early or not at all. Down low to beat. Tough catch in traffic. Missed the shot. Rebound Adrian again. Another offensive rebound. And he is fouled, so he'll shoot a couple.
And that is why he is so invaluable. You get the offensive rebound on the free throw. Then Thabit goes up. They choose not to foul Thabit. And watch the strength of Jeff Adrian's hands. Thabit working, just flips something up there. Look at Jeff Adrian. Everybody trying to get a piece of it. Nobody's taking it.
Way fouls out. 17 points and 8 rebounds. So Way in 2 games in his career against UConn, 33 points and 24 rebounds. And Adrian will go to the free throw line, where he is 1 of 2.
Now, Quinnipiac did everything right to get into this game, and then they did essentially everything wrong, giving up offensive rebound after offensive rebound, fouling with the shot clock running down. Shot clock under 7, you don't foul, make the other team hit a shot. A couple cardinal sins committed by Quinnipiac.
UConn, a ghastly 14 of 30 from the line tonight. Dyson just 5 of 12. But Adrian does not knock down the first. Marcus Johnson again seated at the scores table. He was set to go in for Dyson when he was shooting free throws. Timeout called by Quinnipiac with 40 seconds left. When you look at the UConn schedule, the Huskies will play 7 games against 6 teams that are currently ranked in the top 25. They'll play number 5 Pittsburgh. You mentioned the non-league game against number 7 LSU. They'll play Georgetown once. The Hoyas are ranked 8th. 1 game against Marquette. They're ranked 17th. This is UConn's early season schedule. And then later on they'll play a home-and-home with Syracuse, who's ranked 20th, and they will play a non-league game against Georgia Tech, number 21, in a rematch of the 2004 NCAA championship game.
And Georgia Tech has 2 fantastic guards, Thaddeus Young, Tavares Crittenton. Paul Hewitt thinks